Whispers in the hollow genre, horror, narration voice, Adam, duration, 20-25 minutes, spoken. Chapter 1. The old Mappet was a stormy night, the kind that seems to shake the world with its fury. Rain lashed against the windows, and the wind howled like a warning. I was in my grandfather's house, an old, creaky thing perched on the edge of a dark forest. My family had never told me much about it, just that it had been in the family for generations. There was always something strange about it, though. Something that seemed to whisper at the edge of your consciousness. That night, as the storm raged outside, I found an old map tucked away in a drawer in the attic. It was faded, the edges tattered, but unmistakable. A map of the nearby woods, marked with a red X in the center. The name written beneath the X, the Hollow. I'd heard whispers about the Hollow before, but no one would speak of it. There were no details. No one had ever ventured in. Not since the old times. But the map called to me. Chapter 2. The Hollow's Secret. The storm had passed by morning, leaving the sky clear and the air thick with mystery. I knew I couldn't ignore the map. My curiosity was stronger than the fear gnawing at my gut. I packed a small bag and followed the map's directions. The woods were quiet. Too quiet. The trees stood like silent sentinels, and the path narrowed as I ventured deeper. The birds, usually so lively, had gone. All that remained was the rustle of my footsteps on the wet ground. Hours passed. My legs ached, but I pressed on. And then I saw it. A clearing. In the center, a dilapidated house stood alone, its windows like empty eyes staring into the abyss. The structure seemed to breathe with the wind, shifting ever so slightly. The map had led me here. The X was right on the spot. But as I approached the house, a cold shiver ran down my spine. Chapter 3. The House That Waited. The front door was ajar, creaking on its hinges as though it had been waiting for me to arrive. I stepped inside. The air was stale, thick with the scent of mildew and something else, something metallic. The walls were covered in peeling wallpaper, but what caught my eye was a small desk in the corner. On it was an old journal, leather-bound and worn with age. I opened it carefully, the yellowed pages crackling in the silence. The journal was filled with scrawled entries, stories, warnings, strange sketches. But one entry stood out. "They watch from the walls. You'll never leave if you don't leave now." Suddenly, the floorboards creaked. A shadow passed behind me. I spun around, but nothing was there. Just silence. Chapter 4. The Whispers in the Walls. That night, the house wasn't empty. The walls, they seemed to move, shifting slowly as though they were alive. I could hear faint whispers from within them. They weren't words at first, just murmurs, but they grew louder. "Leave, before it's too late." I tried to escape, but the door wouldn't open. It was like the house didn't want me to leave, like something was holding me here. The whispers grew clearer, the sound almost unbearable. "You shouldn't have come. You shouldn't have found us." I backed away slowly, my heart pounding in my chest. The walls were pulsing as though the house was breathing. Then I saw it. The outline of a face in the wall, flickering in and out of view like an old film reel. It was watching me. Chapter 5. The Hollow's cursed desperation clawed at me. I had to get out. I had to leave before it was too late. But every turn I took, the house shifted. Hallways stretched longer, rooms that hadn't been there before appeared. And in every room, those eyes, the face, it was everywhere. I heard it again, the whispering, the soft voice calling from the shadows. "You cannot escape. The Hollow does not forget." And then, a new whisper. You are one of us now. The walls began to close in on me, the air thick with an oppressive pressure. The room started to spin and I collapsed to my knees. Suddenly, the front door opened and, in the doorway stood a figure, a man, or what had once been a man. His skin was stretched tight over his skull, eyes hollow, mouth agape in a scream that never left. It wasn't alive. It was stuck, trapped in a moment that never ended. You should have listened. Chapter 6. The last breath, I couldn't move. Fear paralyzed me. The figure reached toward me, but then stopped, its hand hovering inches from my face. It let out a rasping breath, a sound that rattled my bones. And then it whispered one final word, the word that would haunt me forever. Remember. The walls of the house seemed to close in on me, and I felt the suffocating weight of time, itself pressing against my chest. The world around me began to dissolve into shadows. I gasped for air, and then nothing. Chapter 7. Whispers. Never fade. I woke up, not in the house, not in the woods. I was lying in the middle of the clearing, the sun high above me. The house was gone, the map was gone. But the whispers, they still lingered. They were in the air, in the trees, in the very ground beneath my feet, and they were waiting for me to remember. You can never leave. The hollow never forgets. The end. Or is it? Would you like more from this twisted tale? Chapter 8 and beyond will reveal the true origin of the curse, the story of the hollow's first victim, and what happens when the whispering begins to follow the listener beyond the forest. Let me know if you'd like to continue with more chapters. Whispers in the Hollow chapters 8 to 15. Extended horror script. Narration voice, Adam. For TTS, YouTube. Chapter 8. The first victim. The whispers never left. No matter where I went, no matter how fast I ran, they followed. They clung to me like smoke, swirling just out of sight. But I knew they were there, waiting, watching. I couldn't escape them, but I couldn't understand why they followed me. What was it about me? I had to find out. I began to research the history of the Hollow. My grandfather's house, the map, the whispers. It was all connected. The town's old library held the answers I needed. The librarian, an old woman who barely spoke, handed me a thick, dusty tome. Her fingers trembled when she placed it in my hands. "Be careful what you seek," she warned. The book was full of names, dates, locations, but one name caught my eye, Eleanor Carter. She was the first person to enter the Hollow, the first to hear the whispers, and the first to become them. Chapter 9. Eleanor's Curse. The story of Eleanor Carter was disturbing. She was a young woman just like me who had wandered into the Hollow many years ago, searching for something. Answers, perhaps. But what she found was far worse than any question she had. Eleanor had disappeared for days, and when they found her, she was lying in the center of the clearing, the same place where I had woken up. She had no memory of what happened, but her eyes were hollow, just like the man I had seen in the house, and Eleanor, like the others who came after her, had a voice that wasn't her own. Chapter 10. The Hollow's Bargain. Needed to know more about what had happened to Eleanor. I returned to the Hollow, driven by a need to understand, to break the curse, to find the answers that might allow me to finally leave. As I entered the clearing, the air grew thick with that same heavy feeling I had felt before. The trees seemed to lean closer, their branches reaching out as if to grab me. That's when I heard it. "Welcome back." The voice was soft, almost playful. but there was something sinister in it, something ancient. A figure stepped out of the shadows, the same man I had seen before, but his face was different now, more familiar, more real. It was Eleanor. Her eyes were still hollow, but her lips curled into a smile as she approached me. "The hollow doesn't take just anyone," she said. "It chooses, and it keeps you." I wanted to run. I wanted to scream. But the hollow held me in place. She whispered, "You've already made the bargain. The hollow knows you. It will never forget." Chapter 11. The mark of the hollow. I could feel something changing within me. It wasn't physical, but it was there. A presence. A mark. At first, I thought it was just my imagination. But then I saw it. Faint at first, but growing clearer. A symbol. It appeared on my wrist just like the one Eleanor had. A spiral. Endless. Twisting. The same mark had appeared on every victim of the hollow, every person who had walked too far into the forest. I felt it burning. It wasn't just a mark. It was the curse itself, sinking into my skin. Chapter 12. The Hollow Watches. I returned to the house. My grandfather's house. But it wasn't the same. The walls, the floors, everything seemed to shift in subtle ways. I could feel eyes on me, watching, listening. I went to sleep that night, but I didn't dream. Instead, I woke to the sound of footsteps, soft at first, then louder, closer. I couldn't move. I tried to scream, to call out, but no sound came. The whispers surrounded me, growing louder. "You can't escape. You never will." And then I saw them. Shadows, faces, figures all huddled, together in the corners of the room. They weren't human. Chapter 13. The entity. I couldn't stay in the house any longer. The shadows were growing too strong. They wanted me. They needed me. But the worst part? They were alive. They weren't just figments of my imagination. They were part of the hollow, part of its curse. And now, they wanted to claim me as their own. I ran into the forest, desperate to escape, but the whispers followed. "You can't hide. We will find you." I stumbled deeper into the woods, the trees pressing in around me. And then, as if from nowhere, the ground gave way. I fell. When I woke up, I was in a cave. The walls were covered with strange symbols, faces, eyes. And the worst part, there was something in the darkness. A presence. A voice that came from nowhere and everywhere at once. "You are part of us now.